Imagine believing the world was about to end so strongly that you stopped paying your bills, ignored your taxes, and even brushed off traffic tickets. Because, well, why would any of that matter if you were convinced you'd be lifted straight into heaven? That's exactly what happened to actress and comedian Sherri Shepherd. The Emmy-winning star, known from shows like Less Than Perfect and 30 Rock, recently opened up on her own talk show about a chapter of her life that left fans stunned. She revealed that her deep belief in the rapture, the biblical moment when believers are said to be taken up to heaven, once pushed her into decisions that spiraled out of control. With her parents rooted in the faith of Jehovah's Witnesses, young Sherri grew up hearing over and over again that the end of the world was just around the corner. And so, she thought, why worry about credit scores, overdue fines, or taxes if eternity was just days away? But instead of being carried up in a holy moment, Sherri's choices carried her somewhere very different: jail. On her talk show, Sherri recounted the story with a mix of humor and painful honesty. She described how she simply stopped paying anything. Traffic tickets piled up, registration fees went ignored, and tax bills went unopened. At first, she felt liberated, like she was living above all those worldly responsibilities. She was certain the rapture was near. So why hand money to the government, or a utility company, or even a court clerk? But reality eventually came crashing down. Sherri admitted that by the time authorities caught up with her, she had racked up more than $10,000 worth of unpaid moving violations alone. Think about that for a second. $10,000 in traffic tickets just sitting there, unpaid, because she thought none of it mattered. She laughed while sharing the story, but you could hear the weight underneath. She wasn't just being careless. She was genuinely convinced she was preparing for heaven, and that conviction led her right into the hands of the police. Sherri painted the moment vividly. She recalled how her car registration had been expired for 2 full years, yet she still drove around Los Angeles like nothing was wrong. Every time she got pulled over or received a citation, she brushed it off with the same thought: soon. All of this would vanish when the trumpet sounded. She didn't even bother showing up to court for her infractions. In her mind, why stand before a judge on earth when she was about to stand before God in heaven? She even joked, "Jesus don't care about no parking tickets." That line had her audience roaring with laughter, but beneath the humor was a sobering truth. Her belief had blinded her to real-world consequences. When the day came that she was finally stopped by police, she wasn't dressed for court or ready to face jail. She was on her way to perform at the legendary Comedy Store, wearing a psychedelic multicolored outfit, completely unaware that this time things weren't going to slide. She remembered that night so clearly because it was supposed to be a highlight, not a downfall. She had her set ready, was excited to make people laugh, and instead found herself handcuffed and taken to jail. And not just for a few hours. Sherri spent 8 long days behind bars. For someone used to being on stage or on set, those 8 days felt like an eternity. She joked to her audience that she went in as a wide-eyed believer and came out a hardened criminal. But behind the humor, you could sense the sting of humiliation. Sitting in a cell, dressed in an outfit better suited for a comedy show than a mugshot, she finally faced the reality she had ignored for so long. The world had not ended. The rapture hadn't come. Instead of being lifted into heaven, she was sitting on a cold bench in jail, wondering how faith and fear had led her there. It was a turning point she'll never forget. What makes Sherri's story so powerful is how relatable it becomes when you strip away the details. Maybe most of us haven't stopped paying bills because of a belief in the rapture, but many have made decisions based on fear, faith, or the influence of authority figures. Sherri grew up in a household where the message was constant. The end is coming. Prepare yourself. Don't get too attached to worldly things. As a young woman, she took that teaching literally, and it shaped her behavior in ways that derailed her life. On her show, she shared it not as a sob story, but as a cautionary tale. What happens when belief overshadows common sense? The audience laughed at her line about Jesus not caring about parking tickets, but they also nodded, understanding the larger truth. Ignoring reality doesn't make it go away. For Sherri, the wake-up call didn't come in church or in prayer. It came in the form of flashing police lights. Fast forward to today, and Sherri tells this story with wisdom that only comes from hindsight. She admitted that when she was younger, she truly thought she was doing the right thing, that every ignored bill was an act of faith. But now, looking back, she can laugh at the absurdity and shake her head at how far it went. What sparked her to revisit this memory was a viral moment online. Someone on TikTok claimed Jesus appeared in a dream and told them the rapture would happen on September 23, 2025. The internet went wild, with people spreading the claim like wildfire. Sherri used her platform to say she still believes in the rapture, but this time, she wasn't fooled. She had lived through the fear before, and she wasn't going to let someone else's prophecy lead her down that road again. Her message was clear: believe in your faith, but don't let it trick you into throwing away your life in the present. The way Sherri shared her past struck a chord because it blended comedy with confession. She didn't hide the embarrassment of being arrested over something as avoidable as unpaid tickets. Instead, she leaned into it, turning her mistakes into a teachable moment for others. Her story reminds us how easy it is to fall for promises of certainty in uncertain times. Back then, she was so sure she'd be taken up into heaven that she abandoned responsibility on earth. Now, she encourages people not to lose themselves in fear-driven beliefs. Life still has to be lived. Bills still have to be paid. Tickets still matter, no matter how heavenly your hopes might be. The audience laughed at her psychedelic jail outfit, but the image carried a deeper meaning. You can't dress for eternity and ignore reality. Sherri's honesty gives her story a punchline and a warning. Faith should guide us, not imprison us. In the end, Sherri Shepherd's story isn't just about jail time or unpaid tickets. It's about growth. It's about how a belief, even one rooted in something sacred, can lead you astray if it blinds you to the responsibilities of everyday life. She's living proof that you can stumble hard, even end up behind bars, and still come out stronger, wiser, and with a smile big enough to share your mistakes on national television. The viral rapture prediction of 2025 gave her the perfect moment to remind her audience that she's been there, she's done that, and she won't be fooled again. Her message was wrapped in humor, but its core was serious. Don't let fear of tomorrow rob you of today. Whether you believe in the rapture or not, the lesson rings true. Take care of your life here and now, because unlike prophecies, responsibility doesn't disappear. And sometimes, the biggest revelation comes not from heaven, but from the hard lessons of earth.